I'm not a U.S. company, and I don't make decisions based on what's good for the U.S.
I mean, what a line. You just don't hear a CEO say that out loud, especially not to a government official.
But that was Lee Raymond for you. And that one quote just perfectly sets up the book we're getting into today. Private Empire, ExxonMobil and American Power by Steve Coll.
Yeah, and if you've read his other work, like Ghost Wars, you know Coll is incredibly thorough.
Oh, absolutely. He doesn't treat ExxonMobil like a normal business. He treats it like a sovereign state, a private empire with its own spies, its own foreign policy, and a culture so rigid it makes the military look casual.
And that culture is really the key to the whole thing. It was basically forged in the fire of a single event, the Exxon Valdez oil spill back in 1989.
That disaster just traumatized the company. It wasn't just the money, it was the humiliation.
Exactly. And it led the CEO, Lee Raymond, to install this incredibly rigid, top-down culture. Everything was based on finding the one right answer.
And they built a system to enforce it, right? This thing called OAMS.
The Operations Integrity Management System. And it went into every corner of company life.
It really did. The detail that always stuck with me from the book was the parking rule. You had to back into your parking space. Every employee, every day.
Which sounds so small, right? But think about the psychology.
It's total compliance.
Total compliance. Before you even walk in the door, you're submitting to the company's logic. It's a way of conditioning you to trust the system over your own instincts.
And they had these safety bonuses. Little things like Walmart gift cards.
But the whole team had to be accident-free to get them.
So you're not just watching out for your buddy to keep him safe. You're watching him because if he trips and falls, you lose your gift card. It's weaponized peer pressure.
It creates a kind of internal self-policing state.
Yeah.
But here's the critical link. That extreme internal discipline is what gave them the confidence to operate in places with zero external discipline.
Which brings us to the whole private empire idea. They had to find new oil, and that meant going into really unstable countries. Places like Chad or Equatorial Guinea.
Let's talk about Equatorial Guinea. You have the Obiang regime, which is basically a family-run dictatorship. The U.S. embassy there was tiny, underfunded.
And Exxon's private compound in the capital. It was, for all intents and purposes, the real seat of American power in that country. They held more sway than the actual ambassador.
Because they weren't trying to fix the country. They built a bubble. They used these ironclad contracts, what Coll calls a form of global law, that just bypassed the local chaos. They created their own stability.
They defined their own reality. And that's a perfect transition to how they handled Washington, especially on climate change.
The pivot from Lee Raymond to Rex Tillerson on that issue is, it's one of the most brilliant strategic moves I've ever read about.
Raymond just denied the science, fought it tooth and nail.
Which was a losing battle, and Tillerson saw that. So he stopped fighting the science. He started fighting the economics.
With the outlook for energy, this huge report looking out to 2030, they just flooded Washington with it.
And it was all charts and data about population growth in India, electricity demand in China. The argument completely shifted.
It was no longer, is climate change real? It was, okay, it's real, but stopping oil is an economic fantasy. The world needs this energy. Look at the math.
It was genius. They positioned themselves as the realists, the adults in the room, and painted environmentalists as naive dreamers who didn't get it. They changed the entire debate.
And the timeline they operate on is just, it's staggering. Exxon is making capital investments that won't pay off for 30, 40, even 50 years.
They're planning for a world that's generations away. A U.S. president thinks in 4 8-year cycles. Exxon thinks in half centuries.
Their profits alone are often bigger than the entire GDP of a country like Norway.
And that's really the final provocative question the book leaves you with. If a corporation plans decades beyond any election cycle, who really holds the power over our energy future?
The voter who casts a ballot every few years. Or the private empire planning for 2050. Something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.